Welcome to the Death of the Author podcast, episode 9. Your world this week in the YA universe and general geekery. You're here with Alexandra, a fictionado of all things nerdy and obscure, and Chelsea, writer of many unfinished things and general story connoisseur. So, it is week 9, episode 9, of our podcast, and things have gotten pretty exciting. We have a new kind of element to our show this week. It won't be like this every week, but hopefully more often than not. Before we get to our surprise, we're just going to do our usual, hey, this is what's coming out this week. So, for this week, we have a bunch of books that are running around, but for the next 2 weeks, from February 1st to the 15th, these are some of the books that are coming out. There's All Fall Down by Ali Carter, Woven by Michelle Jensen and David Powers, scripted by Maya Rock, and then on Tuesday the 10th, a whole bunch of stuff comes out.
My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Waga, Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, Seeker by Arwen Ellis Dayton, The Last Time We Say Goodbye by Cynthia Hand, and The Shadow Cabinet by Maureen Johnson.
Totally exciting, right?
I'm so excited for The Shadow Cabinet.
So we are probably going to be reviewing Seeker by Arwen Ellis Dayton. We got an ARC for that. Woohoo! Shadow Cabinet is on our list of we must read this, otherwise our lives are going to be over.
Yep.
And The Red Queen also looks really interesting. So, here is the summary for Seeker by Arwen Ellis Dayton.
For readers of A Game of Thrones and The Hunger Games comes an epic new series. The night Quinn Kincard takes her oath, she will become what she has trained to be her entire life. She will become a Seeker. This is her legacy, and it is her honor. As a Seeker, Quinn will fight beside her two closest companions, Shinobu and Jon, to protect the weak and the wronged. Together they will stand for light in a shadowy world, and she'll be with the boy she loves, who's also her best friend. But the night Quinn takes her oath, everything changes. Being a Seeker is not what she thought. Her family is not what she thought. Even the boy she loves is not who she thought. And now it's too late to walk away.
Woohoo!
That sounds like something. Something we've read already. Something we've watched. Something dealing with a sword of truth. Something dealing with a sword of truth.
Of course it does, because anytime you hear Seeker now, you're just like, meow. But I've heard it used so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's in Dragon Age Inquisition, you have the Seeker. It's in this, it's Legend of the Seeker. It's just a word people like to use. But it sounds really interesting. I'm super excited to actually review that.
Woo. Mm-hmm. Other big things coming up. We are now officially in February, meaning it's the best month of the entire year because it is now Vampire Month. So there will be a lot of vampire-themed things hitting our channel and our blogs and everything. So look forward to that.
Yeah, we were supposed to have Vampire Month done in January. That was supposed to be our January project. That did not happen.
I wonder why.
Oh, God. I don't even know what we do with our lives anymore. I really don't.
Yeah.
But anyways, so instead of our feature talk for this week, we have something a little special. We actually got to sit down and talk with the writer of Kingdom of Little Wounds, Suzanne Corco, and it was pretty freaking awesome.
I still have no words for how amazing that was.
It was just so incredible. We got to ask her all the questions we've been dying to ask for like over a year now since we read that book, and we were just shocked by it. And she was so smart, she was so friendly, she just loved talking about her book, and it was quite the enlightening experience.
She asked me if I wanted to date Nicholas.
Did she really?
It went over both of our heads.
I'm glad, because what we have for you next is about 20 minutes of our interview. Our interview actually lasted about 2 hours. So in order to save you guys from having to, just sitting there listening, actually posting the entire 2-hour interview on YouTube. So we will link to that. And if you're interested, go check it out. And we will also be doing a vlog article on this interview, this little piece right here that you're going to hear next. So buckle up, listen in, and enjoy our interview with Miss Suzanne Coco.
So I think I'm anticipating probably some of the questions. Feel free to talk at any time.
Well, that kind of like goes into our question about Nicholas, because definitely everything that he does in the book can be read into as evil, but in his case, he's pushing forward doing what he wants to do. Mm-hmm. So Chelsea kind of wants to know where he came from, because it's just...
I like how you put the question in her mouth.
Well, that was when we were coming up with questions for this, I was going on, I don't know, my big question was, what was the hardest scene for you to write? And Chelsea was like, where did Nicholas come from?
It was just so fascinating, and just his like thought processes for like, I don't know, his medical, I'm gonna keep myself safe, and I was just like, what? Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, so you're asking not so much where Nicholas came from as where did his penis come from?
Exactly.
Well, that too, yeah.
And I trust I can use that word on the vlog. I won't use some of the others.
Well, I think that's also a question that we did do a lot of research in other people who posted reviews and videos, and I think that came up in almost everything we watched. It's like, that was a question.
That was, his penis was one of the elements with which I started thinking about the story, actually. Like, it's while I was still working on my first novel, Mirabilis, which freaks out lactating women because it's about a wet nurse who feeds people from her breasts. While I was working on that, I kind of woke up and there was a sentence that all the children in the royal nursery were sick. And that would throw a country into chaos, if you don't know who's going to inherit. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking about just beds lined up and nurses taking care of them and, some conniving people who are trying to take advantage of the situation. Like Eleanor was more of a villain in earlier drafts. Because it's her job to take care of the children. And Isabel, in a way, is a villain because she's poisoning the children. She thinks she's helping them, but she's trying out all this Renaissance medicine that worked as explanations at the time, and people thought they saw some improvement from, pouring mercury into a wound. But, I don't see any real evil in Isabel. I think she wants to be a good mother. Mm-hmm. The really horrible person, of course, is Nicholas. And he's somewhat allied with Eleanor at the beginning, but he's willing to sell her out in order to get where he wants to go. And I am talking about his character before I talk about his member.
Of course, yes. Yes.
But, there were a lot of controversial ideas about cures at the time. Mercury really was thought possibly to heal the sores of syphilis, or guaiac, the gum of a tree from the New World, might help this disease that they associated with Columbus having discovered the New World and bringing syphilis back with him, though the origins of the disease are debated. And Nicholas has some of that panic about syphilis, how you get it, what kind of person gets it, because at the beginning it's mostly aristocrats and prostitutes. So the people in the middle who can't afford a prostitute who is infected with syphilis, they don't get it as often. there was a widespread belief in the power of different gems to cure different ailments. Amber runs through the novel because there's amber in that part of the world, and it represents marital fidelity, true love, good health, especially good blood. It depends on which folklore book you're looking at. So Nicholas has worked out the system where he has the jewels sewn into his member, and he also prefers not to have traditional missionary sex, but to do other things, because one thing that really terrifies him is syphilis, which at the time was awful. I mean, you would go blind, go crazy. These days, don't hesitate to get a test, kids. It's a very easy cure. But actually, in developing countries, it's still a problem, partly because of the fear of it. So, yeah, and I kept thinking about this big knobby thing, and of course there's danger in having the surgery to get the jewels.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It does not sound fun on modern anesthetic. Like, forget about back then.
True. They had a different theory of not exactly germs, but they thought that bad smells would make you sick. That the smell of sewage means that little bits of fecal matter are entering your body, which is actually true, because that's how we perceive the smell. So that's why there are just so many things wrong with having 7 cats and a big dog. But so he follows mostly what would have been Arab medicine, with the jewels, and his penis is kind of scary. And when I was signing the contract, the publisher bought merchandising rights, which is normal, like, if you're going to produce t-shirts or stuffed animals or something. And I was thinking, wow, what kind of merchandise would you sell for the kingdom? Like a little penis purse. Dazzle and
Okay. One of our questions was, how did you come up with the title?
I am really bad at titles, but from the first moment I thought of this story, that's the title that came to me. And it's the only time that a title stayed with me from the beginning to the end. Now I have cat hair on my face.
You can't see it.
Fergus is in my lap. I had conceived of it as a story about a kingdom and a political jeopardy, but it was a very personal story about how politics affect us as individual people. And everybody back then would constantly have something wrong. Terrible rashes. There were fleas and lice and other parasites that would feed on you. You were wormy. If you were sick, someone would cut you to drain out the bad blood. So whether you were healthy or sick, you smelled bad, and you had some kind of wound somewhere. Also, it's kind of a wink at the Middle Ages, because one of the English euphemisms for the lady parts is your little wound.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, which says a lot about how people thought about sex then. That if you have a vagina, you have a little wound. And then there's the man's masterly sword that is going to open that wound in you again and again. I don't know if you're going to want to include that on your
No, that's
website.
actually, it's really fascinating because I'm like working through the title of the book now, and it's just like, yes, the majority of the characters are women. So,
Kingdom of Women. I
yeah.
don't know. It's amazing.
So I guess the next logical question is, are you working on anything else?
Dreaded question.
Yes, the one for which I have to prepare glib answers to protect my innermost soul. It's like, well, when you publish something, it's sort of like ripping out your heart and holding it up to the world while it's still beating and bloody and saying, hey, what do you think of me?
That just makes me think of that scene in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it feels to me, though.
Yeah.
I know lots of people who will take any opportunity to kind of, grab you by the collar and pull you aside and say, I'm working on this really wonderful, sensitive novel about Charlotte Corday and the French Revolution. And yeah. Those are usually the people whose work I don't find as challenging and interesting. Okay, so lengthy preface. Now, how am I going to live up to what I just said? There's one novel I'm revising, which is a ghost story about a marriage. It's set right after World War One, and now after the great experience with the Kingdom, I want to publish only YA stuff because I love that community of readers and other writers. But I'd started this a long time ago, and it's set in the first house that I bought in Richmond, which was built in 1920 on a big avenue with, you have pets too.
Yes. This is Peppa.
Yeah, so I'm kind of doing I wrote that, I had done the research, and I had a severe concussion, so I couldn't read or sleep. My brain got entirely rewired. I still don't like chocolate, and I used to love chocolate. But to kind of escape the pain in my head, I would just put the laptop on my legs, and this was interesting because I was dyslexic, and I would just type all night, part of the story I had thought of, and I used the concussions and the chronic migraines as a way into the spirit world, and also I had a great aunt who was the village psychic in a little town called Gilleleje on the coast of Denmark. And I've always thought Great Aunt Nellie was really interesting. So she's in there as a character. And I'm working on a late medieval semi-prequel to The Kingdom, which kind of takes up a story that Ava might have told. And it's the most purely magical thing that I've ever written, because even though none of my novels are straightforward realism, I usually like to write in some empirically possible explanation for the strange things that are happening. But in this one, there's no getting around the fact that a woman from the land mated with a man from the sea, and the main character is their daughter, who is technically half a mermaid, but she lives with the mer people, and I've been figuring out what that world would be like, and when she comes to land and gets romantically involved with a wastrel boy she has rescued, and also with his mother, who is a witch on the land, or thinks she's a witch. But I had an interesting time. Mermaids are kind of hot right now, and
Yeah, I saw
and-
that.
and I worry about a glut on the mermaid market. But I'm half Danish. My mother was named after a mermaid, so I have a right to it.
Well, you've sold me. I still can't get over how awesome that was.
Just, I can't. I was so happy.
It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot of things. I'm so excited for her upcoming projects.
Your face when she was talking about her upcoming projects was absolutely priceless. Wonderful interview, and we'll probably end up talking to her sometime in the future.
So if you haven't read it already, we definitely suggest you go out and check out Kingdom of Little Wounds or any of her other novels. And we are looking forward to anything else that she puts out.
And yeah,
So I guess that's it for today.
I think we did a lot. If you are looking to follow us on the internet, we have our YouTube channel, Death of the Author. We have our website, www.doftheA.com. We are also on Twitter at doftheA Reviews and at Zirius Loki.
Find us.
We are on the internet. So, we hope you guys enjoyed that interview, and we will see you in 2 weeks, guys. Bye!
Bye.